Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I am your host, John McGinley. I'm joined by Ryan McGinley at Hampden for today's big Scottish Cup semi-final between Celtic and St Johnstone. Another step on the road towards a potential treble. Ryan, we'll get all the team news. We'll get all the chat from you in a moment. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. As you know, the Celtic Way is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Glasgow and the surrounding area, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Ryan, we're just going to fire right into the team news here. We've got the 11 thrown up. Can you take us through the team?
Absolutely. So you've got Viljami Sinisalo in goals, a back four of Greg Taylor, Liam Scales, Cameron Carter-Vickers and Alistair Johnson left to right. The base of the midfield, it's Callum McGregor, joined by Arne Engels and Rio Hatate. Adam Maeda leads the line, supported by Daizen Maeda and James Forrest. If you could just read out the subs.
Yeah, the subs is Scott Bain, Austin Trusty, Jota, Nicholas Kuhn, Luke McCowan, Jeffrey Schlupp, Paulo Bernardo, and Anthony Ralston. Unchanged 11 from last week. Ryan, is that what you were expecting?
I'm not really sure what I was expecting, to be honest, when it comes to the Hampden team. You know, Daizen Maeda has been doing so well through the middle recently. I wasn't sure if Adam Maeda was maybe going to have to make do with a sub appearance today, but he's got the nod this afternoon. Yeah, he's a guy that knows Hampden well. He's had really good moments at Hampden, even this season with slotting home a penalty in the penalty shootout against Rangers. It's a ground that he likes playing at. You know, you think of last season, think of this season. And Daizen Maeda remains in the team, of course. He's out on left wing. But apart from that, I think a lot of the positions pick themselves. You know, Greg Taylor played himself into contention with his performance last week against Kilmarnock. He was absolutely brilliant. Midfield worked well last week, so that stays the same. And James Forrest, you know, a guy he's done it before, both at Hampden and against St Johnstone in the past. You know, you're hoping that he can do the same again today.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm surprised but not disappointed. I mean, I think obviously when you win a match 5-1 and the manner of Celtic's performance in the first half against Kilmarnock fully justified the changes that Brendan Rodgers made that day. So it's fair enough for me that he goes with the same 11 today. I had a sneaking suspicion he might bring in a Jota, or he might even bring Kuhn back into the team just after firing a shot across the bows, but. He trusts the 11 that's on the team and he thinks it's good enough, and he thinks this is the team that can kind of tackle the woes of McDermott Park, if you will, and what St Johnstone did to us that day. Obviously, no one wants a repeat of that today, and I think the firepower is there in the team, as you just mentioned. These performers have what it takes to win this match today if they play to their full capability.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Forrest did well last week when he was in the team, and he deserves his position. You know, that coupled with the fact that Nicholas Kuhn hasn't been firing on all cylinders recently, it was really not good against St Johnstone at McDermott Park the last time these two sides met. So James Forrest is in there, you know, a veteran back. You know, he always turns up, as Brendan Rodgers says, in the business end of the season. This is when his season comes alive, March, April time, when potential trophies are there to be won. He steps up to the plate. He's done this before, you know, and he's an experienced pro. He can do it, and he'll do it again. You would think for Celtic if given the opportunity this afternoon. But you know, you've got that squad depth on the bench as well with Kuhn and Jota. If it isn't going well for those two wide men, or it isn't going well for Adam Maeda through the middle, you can then move Maeda through the middle and put Jota or Kuhn on. It's great having players that, you know, have worked their way into some sort of form, and also players that have got a point to prove if they are called upon in the second half. But it just shows the strength and depth that Celtic and Brendan Rodgers have at this moment in time, and that augurs well for the game this afternoon, you would feel.
There's obviously been plenty of chat about Greg Taylor this week, both his performance against Kilmarnock last week, where he was deemed the man of the match in the stadium, put in a good shift in the first hour before taking off. Then a lot of chat about his contract through the week. People wondering, is Brendan Rodgers going to stick with Greg Taylor now for this last chunk of the season instead of Jeffrey Schlupp? I think the answer to that looks like a resounding yes. It looks like it will be if he maintains his levels. It looks like Greg Taylor will get the chance to either finish his Celtic career on a high, or lay that claim to be a really viable rotation option to keep him next season, depending on how his contract situation plays out.
It's a very interesting one, because I thought that, you know, I was listening to Brendan Rodgers' press conference, and he was very open about Greg Taylor. I always think that he's quite calculated with what he says to the media. Like, you can always read into things and what he says, and there's certain messaging that he'll send out. I think that, and you don't want to speculate too much. I just wonder if there has been a breakthrough between the two parties in a positive sense. Maybe Greg Taylor's looked at what he can get elsewhere, hasn't maybe got the offers that he's maybe wanted, and maybe he's up for the challenge to come up against his Scotland teammate and friend as well, and Kieran Tierney at that left back position. There'll be plenty of game time for him next season with Tierney back in the team, even with Tierney back in the team. So if he's if his worth has been met in his head with Celtic and the two parties have agreed a deal, then brilliant, and you're hoping that gets announced sooner rather than later. But you rely on him in games like this today. He's done it before at Hampden. He scored at Hampden as well. Yes, he's had a couple of shaky moments, particularly recently at Hampden, but he's also had good moments at Hampden. You'd expect it to be another positive performance today, especially in an attacking sense. He's good in that inverted role. And you'd think that there's definitely space for him to operate this afternoon.
Yeah, and the other, I suppose the other marginal call in the team today was Liam Scales or Austin Trusty. Again, Rodgers saying, Liam Scales is my choice for now for this big game. And fair play to Liam Scales, he's budged Austin Trusty back out the team. I'm just going to throw out the team for the team again for anyone joining us late while you chat through the Liam Scales decision.
Yep, and by all accounts, was doing the stats bomb report on Monday, and he really did perform well. Liam Scales on the ball. He's one of Celtic's top performers on the day in terms of his distribution. Both him, Carter Vickers, and Alistair Johnson, particularly Alistair Johnson, all three of them were really good against Kilmarnock, and they caused Kilmarnock all sorts of problems. I think Scales is quite quick in terms of getting the ball out from the back. Brendan Rodgers clearly likes what he brings to the team in terms of his distribution. And you'd expect that to be the same again today. He's an experienced pro now. He's been a first team player for Celtic proper for 2 years now. So he's played at Hampden, he's played at the National Stadium. He knows what's expected. He can provide a goal threat from corners as well and set pieces because of his height and his frame. But you expect him to do the dirty work when required as well. And it's going to be a physical battle against St Johnstone. They've got big strikers that could potentially hurt Celtic, but you'd expect him to be up to the task because he's been there, done that, and bought the T-shirt by all accounts.
So you're in at Hampden today. What was the feeling outside Hampden, outside on the staircase going up to the doors at Hampden? What's the kind of feeling out there? There's a lot of confidence about this. Obviously, everyone's talking about this treble. Everyone's talking about this potential step on the treble. Everyone's up for it today, Ryan. Is that the feeling you're getting out there?
Yeah, and I think the weather helps as well. The fact that it's a really nice day in Glasgow as well. You're coming into that sort of trophy season, semi-final, final season of the Scottish Cup. And the weather's absolutely brilliant. The sun is shining this afternoon. It seemed like a pretty good atmosphere coming into the ground. I headed a wee bit earlier so that I could get in and settled quickly. But I could only assume that outside it's just as busy, if not busier now, with fans making their way into the stadium. Good atmosphere, chilled atmosphere. I think there definitely is that confidence in the air that Celtic can get the job done today, despite what happened at McDermott Park a couple of weeks ago. I think a lot of people expect Celtic to send out a message. The fact that there's it's knockout football, the Scottish Cup. They want to retain the Scottish Cup. In order to do that, they've got to beat the team that's in front of them today, and I think a lot of people would expect them to do so. But you can't just turn up to a game and expect to win. You've got to put in the hard yards and put in the work and win the game. And that's got to be Brendan Rodgers' message to the players, that you can't just turn up and win. Maybe they did that at McDermott Park and they get stung, but that can't be the case today. It's knockout football and they've got to get the job done.
Well, I mean, we've been saying for ages that there's still so much left good in the season for Celtic.
Absolutely.
I know when we went out to Bayern, there was a big disappointment. There was a wee lull in the team, a wee lull in the motivation of, I guess, supporters and the team. It just felt like that for a few weeks there. But this is what it's all about. A big day at Hampden. The vast majority of the crowd at Hampden hopefully put on a good football display, and Aberdeen waiting in the final potentially for that they are waiting in the final for either team who potentially wins. That'll be a challenge in itself if Celtic make it out today.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be a challenge. Any team will be a challenge.
I think we've maybe lost Ryan. You see, the Wi-Fi at Hampden is notoriously tricky, everyone. So if Ryan disappears and you're left with me, that is the nature of that.
Should be back now.
Oh, Ryan's back now. There he is. Yeah, as we were saying, the Wi-Fi at Hampden is notoriously poor. We'll move on to predictions, Ryan, just before you kind of head off and do your work. We've got plenty on the website. We'll have a live show after the game on YouTube as well. We've got lots to go today. So what are you thinking in terms of the score today?
it's a bit of a weird one to predict because it's all about what Celtic turn up this afternoon. If the Celtic that we've seen for the majority of the season turn up today, then it could be a couple of goals. It could be pretty comfortable for Celtic this afternoon. But if the Celtic that's been creeping in the second half of the season, particularly against St Johnstone at Dermot Park, I know I bring that game up. It was only a couple of weeks ago, but it's the same opponents. You're going to get largely the same sort of performance from Simo Valacari's team as well. If Celtic turn up today and they play to the best of their ability, I think there's going to only be one winner in the game, because when Celtic are at their best, every other team struggles to compete. But it's up to them today. I think it'll be. You don't want to disrespect the opponents too much, of course. I think it will be, if Celtic are up for it today, it'll be pretty comfortable for the holders of the cup.
Yeah, apologies to the Hampden Wi-Fi. Apparently it was my signal that froze there, so apparently there's something wrong with my Wi-Fi, so I shouldn't be casting aspersions. We'll move quickly onto some predictions from the chat. I like to do that. Celtic 88 saying 5-0 Celtic. Robert saying 5-1. Thomas Conley saying 6-0. Barkhead Boy saying 3-0. Natalie McMillan saying 5-0. Squeak 1888 saying 3-0, and in a convincing manner. It feels like a day for Celtic to prove a point and put on a show. I'm feeling it today. I'm going for a 3-0 as well, Ryan. I think Celtic will get the job done convincingly, handsomely today. I know a lot of these semi-finals and finals can be tight, and if it is tight, I'm not going to be disappointed. That's just the way these games go sometimes, but I've just got a wee feeling about Celtic today, I have to say.
Yeah, the most important thing this afternoon is that Celtic win and get to the final of the Scottish Cup. That must be the main objective. It's the minimum requirement for this season. Otherwise, you're playing dead rubbers for the rest of the season. Yes, you've got Tannadice in a week's time to win the league, potentially and hopefully, but you want to have that showpiece game at the end of the season. You want to be meeting Aberdeen in the final. You've already played Aberdeen at Hampden already this season, and it was pretty one-sided. I think it's a bit of an understatement to say that, but yeah, I'm gonna go one up from you. I think I'm gonna go 4-0. I think that Celtic will turn on the style today, and I can't see James Forrest not scoring today. He always turns up in these big games. He's still got that record to chase and keep on going and to keep going and consolidate. And I think it'll be today that he gets that goal. He scored in the semi-final against Aberdeen this time last year. I can see Lightning striking twice and James Forrest getting a goal this afternoon.
Perfect. Okay, well, Ryan, we'll let you enjoy the game. As I say, we're back after on YouTube. We've got lots going up on the website. Tony is also at Hampden, so he'll have his instant analysis up at celticway.co.uk. If that's your thing, Ryan will have his player ratings, and I'll be speaking to Ryan a bit later on this afternoon after Brendan Rodgers' press conferences and some player media duties as well. So we'll have lots later this afternoon. Plenty to say about what's happened at Hampden. Everyone, I hope you enjoy the game. If you're watching us live in the chat or you're watching below in the comments, I hope you enjoy the game, and we'll speak after, good or bad. Goodbye, Ryan.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. Enjoy.